As to count one, based on the verdict of the jury, finding you guilty of unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony under Minnesota Statute 609.19 subdivision 2 paren 1, it is the judgment of the court that you now stand convicted of that offense. Pursuant to Minnesota Statute section 609.04, counts 2 and 3 will remain unadjudicated as they are lesser offenses of count 1. As sentenced for count 1, the court commits you to the custody of the Commissioner of Corrections for a period of 270 months. That's 270. That is a 10-year addition to the presumptive sentence of 150 months. This is based on your abuse of a position of trust and authority, and also the particular cruelty shown to George Floyd. You are granted credit for 199 days already served. Pay the mandatory surcharge of $78 to be paid from prison wages. You're prohibited from possessing firearms, ammunition, or explosives for the remainder of your life. Provide a DNA sample as required by law. Register as a predatory offender as required by law. And then you will receive a copy of the order and also the attached memorandum explaining the court's analysis. Anything further from the state?
If this needs to be said, we just ask that it be executed forthwith.
Defendant is remanded to the custody of the sheriff to be transported back to the DOC or whichever custody is currently holding him. Anything from the defense? All right. Thank you. We are adjourned.
June 25th, 2021, Hennepin County Government Center. The air in courtroom 18 was heavy, thick with a tension that had been building for over a year. This wasn't just another sentencing, it was a cultural flashpoint. Outside, the streets of Minneapolis were lined with people holding their breath, but inside, the atmosphere was clinical, quiet, sterile. Judge Peter Cahill cleared his throat, the sound echoing off the wood-paneled walls like a gunshot in a canyon. Then the gavel fell. 22.5 years. To the casual observer, it was a number. To Derek Chauvin, it was the sound of the world's door locking forever. The finality of that strike didn't just mark the end of a trial, it marked the beginning of a living death. Let that sink in. For a man who spent 19 years as the one holding the keys, the one giving the orders, and the one representing the ultimate authority of the state, the transition to being a mere number is a psychic break most people cannot comprehend. Death would have been easier. In an execution, the lights go out. It's over. The struggle ends. But for Chauvin, the reality is a slow, methodical erasure of the self, played out over decades in a box made of concrete and steel. This is not just a prison sentence. It is a descent into a nightmare where his past life is a ghost and his future is a void. Stay with me, because this specific reality, the reality of a policeman in the cage, is far more brutal than the headlines suggest. I want to welcome you back to the channel, Cold Trail Crimes. We investigate the cases the world tried to forget, looking for the truth in the spaces between the headlines. If you find value in these deep dives, please subscribe and join our community of investigators. And as we begin, tell us where you are watching from today. Whether it's the United States, Canada, Australia, or beyond. Leave a comment below. We read every single one. To understand the nightmare, we have to go back to the catalyst. May 25th, 2020, Memorial Day. A day that began with the mundane, a reported counterfeit $20 bill at a convenience store, and ended with a 9-minute and 29-second descent into absolute chaos. The timeline is a clinical, high-intensity study in escalating tension. 8:19 p.m., Chauvin arrives on the scene. The atmosphere is already fractured, vibrating with the sound of sirens and the murmurs of a growing crowd. 8:20 p.m. The struggle begins. Sensory details from that evening still haunt the collective memory. The rasp of breath against hot pavement, the metallic, rhythmic jingle of handcuffs, the frantic, high-pitched shouts of bystanders that eventually turned into a chilling, hollow silence. By 8:27 p.m., the knee was set. For 9 minutes, Chauvin remained a statue of indifference, his hands in his pockets, his gaze fixed on nothingness, while the world watched him emptying the life out of a man as surely as if he were emptying magazines into a target. But here is the part most people don't understand. What were the missed red flags? Chauvin wasn't a rookie who panicked. He was a veteran. He had 18 prior complaints on his file, 2 letters of reprimand. He had been involved in 3 police shootings. The system didn't just fail George Floyd. It failed to stop a ticking clock that had been winding down for 2 decades. Analyze the offender's psychology for a moment. Was he fundamentally incapable of change? Psychologically, Chauvin was described as a man of rigid adherence to a perceived order, a man who thrived in the hierarchy of the badge. He operated in a world of black and white, of us versus them. But when that badge is stripped away, what is left? In the environment of the Minneapolis Police Department at that time, a culture of warrior training may have nurtured the predator in the officer, encouraging a detachment from the humanity of those he patrolled. But on that pavement, the environment didn't pull the trigger or hold the knee. He did. He chose to remain in that position long after the pulse was gone. Now consider the milestone erasure. As we sit here in February 2026, the calendar pages are turning for the rest of the world, but for Chauvin, they are blank. Think about the specific human experiences that have been deleted from his timeline. There will be no more careers, no quiet mornings with a cup of coffee on a porch, no family weddings, no simple joy of a holiday meal. The simple freedom of walking to a mailbox is now a luxury of a past life. In 20 years, when the average person is reaching the peak of their wisdom or enjoying the fruits of their labor, Chauvin will be 69 years old. He will have spent nearly a quarter of a century in a space no larger than a walk-in closet. His physical decay will be monitored by a cold, unblinking camera lens. His legacy is not the 2 decades of service he once prided himself on, but a 9-minute video that will be played in history classes long after he is gone. Consider the biology of this confinement. Scientific research on the hippocampus, the part of the brain that regulates memory and stress, shows that prolonged isolation can literally cause the brain to shrink. For Chauvin, the man who once controlled the streets, his entire world has shrunk to a footprint. The reality inside the walls is a different kind of torture entirely. Currently, Chauvin has been shuffled through the system like a high-stakes liability. From the maximum security confines of Oak Park Heights, where he was held in administrative segregation for his own safety, to the law library in Tucson, where the shadow of death finally caught up with him. On Black Friday, 2023, the unthinkable happened. John Turskak, and a former gang leader and FBI informant, saw an opportunity. In a place where Chauvin was supposed to be protected by the very state that incarcerated him, he was stabbed 22 times with an improvised knife. 22 times. 1 for every year of his state sentence. Let that number sink in. That is the prison hierarchy speaking. It is a language of blood and irony. In the general population, a former cop is a trophy. A former cop convicted of the most famous murder in a generation, he is a target that never stops moving. He is the ultimate prize for someone looking to settle a score with the system. Turskak later told investigators that if the guards hadn't arrived when they did, he would have finished the job. Following that brutal attack in Arizona, the Bureau of Prisons made a move. Chauvin was transferred again, this time to Oklahoma City and eventually to FCY Big Spring in Texas. On paper, Big Spring is a low-security facility, but for Chauvin, low security is a misnomer. There is no such thing as low security for a man with a multi-million-dollar bounty on his head. He remains a ghost in the machinery of the federal system, often moved under the cover of darkness to avoid detection. Every morning, the lights hum to life at 5 a.m. No hope, no second chances, just concrete. The food is a tasteless fuel pushed through a metal slot in a heavy steel door. The exercise is a walk in a cage, often alone, under the watchful eye of guards who may have once been his colleagues in spirit. He lives in a concrete box where the only window to the world is a narrow slit of glass that mocks him with the sight of a sky he can no longer touch. But as we look at the evidence they didn't want you to see, we have to ask, is this justice or is it a prolonged vengeance? If you've stayed with me this far, you aren't just a casual viewer. You're an investigator. We are building a community of people who refuse to let these stories fade into the concrete. Hit that subscribe button and join our ranks. Help us grow this circle of voices so we can bring more light to these forgotten halls. Now let's look at the evidence they didn't want you to see. As of early 2026, Chauvin continues to fight from behind those walls. His legal team recently filed a new petition for post-conviction relief in Hennepin County, claiming that the original trial was tainted by prosecutorial misconduct and faulty medical testimony. They are pointing to a documentary and new affidavits from 57 current and former officers, claiming that the knee-to-neck restraint was, in fact, trained and consistent with MPD policy at the time. They are trying to argue that the medical cause of death was not the pressure of the knee, but a combination of underlying health issues and the presence of fentanyl.
Would you please tell the jury what that opinion or opinions are?
Yes, Mr. Floyd died from a low level of oxygen, and this caused damage to his brain that we see, and it also caused a PEA arrhythmia that caused his heart to stop.
And by PEA, you mean pulseless electrical activity?
Correct. It's a particular form of an abnormal beat of the heart, an arrhythmia, and a particular form of it.
Is this what some persons might refer to as asphyxia?
Yes, it has been called asphyxia. To me, it's not terribly helpful. It just, what we're really talking about is a low level of oxygen. Other people talk about hypoxia. That again is just...
But the courts have been a cold house for these arguments. Each appeal is a flickering candle in a hurricane. Judge Paul Scoggin has taken these latest petitions under advisement. But the legal momentum is a mountain he cannot climb. The legal updates feel live because they are the only pulse his life has left. Either every filing is a desperate gasp for air in a system that has already decided his fate. The Minnesota Attorney General's office is set to file their response by the end of this month. And if history is any indicator, the door will remain shut. But let's be clear, this isn't a defense of the man. The victim's pain, the hole left in a family and a community, remains the priority. There is no sympathy here for the crime, only a clinical observation of the punishment. We are looking at the mechanics of a living death. Most people think of prison as a place where you sit and wait. But for Derek Chauvin, prison is a place where you are slowly unmade. Your identity as an officer is replaced by a prisoner number. Your authority is replaced by a total, humiliating dependence on the very guards you once considered peers. The physical decay is the most striking part. In the photos leaked or released since his incarceration, the sharp, stern features of the man in the 2021 trial have begun to sag. The eyes, once cold and certain, now look hollowed out by the constant state of hypervigilance that prison requires. He knows that in any room, at any time, the person next to him might be the one looking to make a name for themselves by ending his. That kind of stress ages a man faster than any disease. It turns hair gray and skin to parchment. By the time 2038 rolls around, his projected release date, he will be a shadow of a man. Imagine the silence of a cell at 2 a.m. In that silence, there is no badge. There is no blue wall of silence to hide behind. There is only the memory of 9 minutes and 29 seconds. The psychological weight of knowing that the entire world saw you at your absolute worst and that they will never see you as anything else is a weight that few could carry without breaking. For Chauvin, the nightmare isn't just the walls. It's the fact that even if the walls disappeared, he has nowhere left to go. Is life without the hope of a meaningful return a more civilized punishment? Or is it a living death that is actually more cruel than execution? Execution is a moment. Prison is 1,000 moments of realizing you are already dead to the world. It is the erasure of a name and the substitution of a number. It is the nightmare of being wide awake in a grave you dug for yourself. It is the realization that while the world moves on, while new laws are passed, while cities are rebuilt, while children grow into adults, you are frozen in the same 9 minutes and 29 seconds over and over until the lights finally go out for good. The case of Derek Chauvin is just one file in a very dark cabinet. In our next video, I'm opening the vault on a story even more chilling than this one. If you aren't subscribed, you're going to miss the update that changes the way you look at the justice system forever. Don't get left outside the walls. Join us, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.